Obviously, we've had a tumultuous couple of weeks. I just refer you up to the screen. I vaguely know Active Patriot. I don't know who York's Rose was. I met Active Patriot when I was filming on the docks of Dover, and as far as I'm aware, he has been one of the most active people filming day after day in Dover of illegal migrants.
So this is the guy who's been filming the boats basically since the start, isn't it?
Yes, right from the start. And I actually met Nigel on those docks as well.
Right.
He was filming. And so it appears that Active Patriot has been arrested. And like many of the events this week, we don't get full information. I think he's a working class guy and he's probably not got any legal representation. But we have had a number of people like that being picked off. And the question comes, we have no First Amendment. What is it that makes you get picked off? Am I going to get picked off? Is Nigel going to get picked off? Nigel Farage? We don't know. For example, is the word illegal immigrant is that insightful? The wording is so vague. So you can be. People have been arrested for very obvious things, like saying that, migrant hotels should be burnt down. But people appear to have been arrested as well for simply talking about illegal migration or posting too many films.
So this could be hubris, and I could be entirely wrong. But I suspect what you hinted at the beginning there is the correct thing, which is he's working class and he won't have good legal representation. Mm-hmm. That's the kind of person they go after. Because if you look at what Douglas Murray or, even I say about this subject, at the heart of it, it's not wildly different to what a lot of these guys are saying.
Yeah.
The difference is if they go after Douglas Murray or I, the first call we make is to a very expensive lawyer and they will have to spend months going through that. And then if they put me in a courtroom, they want to put me in front of a court and I'll say, well, I'm not taking the... what do you call them? The magistrates. I'm not taking that. I want a full trial, and then I'm going to stand there and give the full presentation.
Yeah.
And I will eat up a vast amount of their budget going through this. Whereas the working class guys are just going to say, "Oh, just give me the appointed guy, and let's just do it a magistrate."
Well, and also their language is a little bit different. A bit rougher. It's.
But I mean, Douglas Murray is talking about remigration.
Correct. So yes. So what is horrifying about this entire thing is, are the words illegal immigration going to be insightful? And we're getting to the point where it appears that there was a very funny one where this is a Sikh guy or an Indian who's a supporter of Tommy Robinson, and he said 700 dinghy wallahs arrived yesterday. I don't know if you know, but a wallah is a chai wallah, is a guy who serves tea in India. It means sort of like a bod.
Right.
Like a cleaner wallah, a dinghy wallah. So we can all talk now about dinghy wallahs. Maybe that will be a bit more.
Did he get arrested? Or?
Well, no, he's not been arrested. But
I think it's very deliberately ambiguous, though. I mean, like in 1984, the party, Big Brother, will change the rules.
Yeah.
And doesn't tell anyone. And that's part of the game. That's part of the terrifying nature of it.
You see,
you don't know.
America has a First Amendment, and it's very, very clear, really. It's pretty clear. It allows Holocaust deniers. That's not a problem for America. But when it is specifically targeted at a person, and that is why, for example, we're going to go on to Wes Streeting's hold on, let's see where Wes Streeting is. I seem to have... Here we are, Wes Streeting. Wes Streeting has targeted individuals here very, very specifically by name. Now, that, in my opinion, and I'm not a lawyer, but under First Amendment rights, that would not be protected. Certainly if there was considered a direct threat to those people. And obviously...
Well, so this is a Labour MP and he's talking
He's the health minister.
Oh, the health minister.
He's now Wes Streeting, the health minister.
But for those who are listening, he's making the case for pushing a particular woman under a train.
Who is, I believe, a Daily Mail journalist, and of course followed by Geert Wilders, who is the politician in Holland, the far, what we call the right wing, far right. But yeah, so this Now, we also, of course, had Ricky Jones, who said that he would like to cut the throats of all fascists.
So hang on, this was the Labour councillor. And he came out saying that we should cut the throat of the rioters.
Cut the throats of all fascists.
But by that, he basically means the entire working class.
I think he means about 60% of the British population.
Yes.
I mean, we go back
I think he has been...
he has been arrested, but he hasn't been charged. And so we've got people who've already been... Again, this is the really weird thing about the legal process. The courts are in chaos. The small claims court takes 2 years to get through. Generally, even remand people are taking 9 months. And some of these people have been sentenced in 2 days to 3 years.
It doesn't make sense if you look at it as the system as a whole. If you look at it in terms of our friends don't get prosecuted and our enemies do get prosecuted, well, then it suddenly makes sense.
Yeah, I think, I don't know, we go to the link.
There was one tweet there, but the middle one by Wes Streeting.
Yeah.
Put that back up, Samson. That's quite remarkable, even if it's sort of tongue-in-cheek and he's not being serious. But he says, considering starting my own vigilante organisation to push nasty people under trains. First up, Jan Wire, I'm not followed by Gert Wilders.
Now, I mean, to put that into context...
That's a mad thing
If you said exactly the same thing, but you said... I don't know, immigrants, or you name an immigrant person or something, you would most definitely be arrested for that.
Well, for example, Femi. Let's say we named Femi and said we would like to push him under a trade and start a vigilante group against him.
That 100%, you go to jail in this country for that.
Yeah.
Hmm.
It's funny the engagement he got on that. 3 likes.
So let's just have a quick look at the headline for the Romanian. Can you move the on to where the Romanian is? Hold on, sorry about this. Well,
which Romanian is that? Is that the one who had a diversity episode in Leicester Square yesterday?
No, the Romanian. Here we are. This one. This is a new one. Yesterday, 2 days ago. Now, this to me looks like, let's get a bit equal so that we're not two-tier. So this guy, I mean, I bet he's shocked. He I think, did a TikTok saying that he was being chased by some far-right people.
And it wasn't true?
And it wasn't true. Right. And he's got 3 months. Now, even that I find quite extraordinary that he has been charged.
Yeah, I don't agree with that either.
Months. I don't agree with it.
But it is weird that they did that, because normally, well, for a start, it's 3 months. If it's been the other way around,
36.
of course, he would have got somewhere between 20 and 36. It was the other way around. But interesting that they're trying to.
That's an equalisation job.
Well, this comes, of course, after 2 weeks of Elon Musk calling Keir Starmer two-tier Keir.
Yeah.
So they needed to try and show something.
So what are the details of this? Is that all he did? He claimed he was being chased by a far-right mob and wasn't. Is that all he did?
That's what he did. And
in a TikTok video, apparently.
And it got 700 views, which wasn't exactly sort of going viral, was it?
No.
I bet he's a bit shocked himself, absolutely horrified. I mean, I would. Yes, he lied, obviously, but was he insightful? This is the issue. I mean, the other issue is the Conservative councillor. Yet she said, when she named the theoretically the Muslim who had done the Southport stabbings, and she said something like, supposedly, or it appears that, or it might be. She had prefaced it that.
Or did she?
She did preface it.
It was allegedly.
Allegedly, yes. She prefaced it. I mean, I made a mistake.
But hang on. And she's gone to jail for
36 months, I believe.
Hang on. She's gone to jail for 36 months for saying that this thing might be true.
That he was a Muslim, that this is a Muslim asylum seeker named whatever.
Oh, dear God.
Now, the point is, if she had said, I believe the guy, it'd be very interesting as well, because if she'd said, I believe the guy is David Jones and he's a criminal. Or if she'd said his name is Amit Patel, what the response would have been. And I'm convinced they would have been different according to what name you had used. I mean, that there's a specific thing that if you say it might be a Muslim, then it's going to be much worse than an Indian or a Nepalese guy.
Protected groups are encoded in law, aren't they?
Yes. So I just want to talk a bit about the communities issue. Hold on, I'm not sure I can get.
There you
go. Right, this is a really interesting issue. So this brings us back onto Nigel. There is some evidence that support for Nigel during this is going down and not up by some polls. Sky produced one.
Probably not reliable then, but...
The first point about this is who... we seem to have clearly people in the Islamic community and in the Roma community who are leaders and you can talk to. And I don't know who, you'd have mosque leaders.
Well, the police seem to know who they are.
They seem to know who they are. Yeah. Who are our leaders? I mean, who is a working class leader in a community in Hull?
Well, every time somebody sticks their head above the parapet, they get harassed and their lives destroyed until they either give up, flee the country or go to jail.
Yes, but the point is that Nigel is effectively, there are two leaders we have really at the moment. One of them is Tommy Robinson and one of them is Nigel.
Yes.
And if anybody could lead, it would be Nigel. And I do speak to Nigel and I said, you should go to Southport. You should be now standing up and you should risk arrest. And it doesn't matter what the left say because they'll call you thugs in suits. As we saw on one of those tweets, a BBC journalist called him a thug in a suit. And this is what I feel is really wrong at the moment, is that instead of standing up, he's effectively been hiding. He's hardly said anything at all.
I would like to see him come out as like a firebrand.
Yeah.
Absolutely standing on the principles of free speech very, very strongly.
It's not him though, is it?
Like, it's not as important anymore that he keeps his powder dry for Radio 4. That's less important now.
I've said to him, life has moved on, Nigel. This might have worked 5 years ago, 10 years ago. This isn't a strategy anymore. We have moved into a new period. We've moved into a totalitarian Marxist left-wing government who are going to use every legal means, and you will not be able to distinguish your free speech from Tommy Robinson's free speech or our free speech. To which Nigel replied that, he wasn't going to be associated with people who advocated violence. Now, actually, that is quite offensive to people, all of us around this table. There's no way we advocate violence. And I don't really think that Tommy Robinson has advocated violence at all.
No.
But, this was a Mandela moment. This was a moment where, you could have stood in the street in Southport and even got yourself arrested and said, or asked people to stop and made some proposals about what Keir Starmer should do and what you would like to do.
Well, I mean, bear in mind that they have got to the point with this where even attending one of these things, even if you did nothing, I mean, the judge has said, even if you simply stood to one side and watched it unfold, that is a jailable offence.
Yeah. And there was a man with a dog who was trying to get through who got arrested. He was trying to go home and he was just knocked to the floor. I mean, we are in we're in Venezuela. We're in the Soviet Union now.
Through the looking glass.
There's only a small line between this and the end of elections, between total lawfare, between arresting all your political opponents. Not just a question of picking them off, but actually arresting them. And events are moving so quickly. I mean, we can see, for example, here.
Well, this is a panicky, brittle government.
Hold on, that going back to that, look, that is, we've got a BBC, he's worked for the BBC, Nigel Farage is a thug in a suit.
Nigel really isn't thuggish, is he? He's not thuggish. He hasn't got thug life tattooed on his stomach like Tupac, has he?
But,
I mean, it's not really.
If you were going to the football terraces, you wouldn't want Nigel watching your back, would you? I mean, it's not.
I don't think Nigel carries around brass knucks with him or anything like that, right? It's not thuggish.
But this is a point where you needed somebody to lead, not Elon Musk from the other side of the world.
No.
I mean, the Conservatives have been silent, just
Conservatives
totally
agree with Labour.
silent. I haven't seen an enormous amount. I've seen a bit of Richard Tice. He's actually stood up. I think Alex Phillips has done a good job. She's been more vocal than Nigel has.
I would like to see Nigel getting a bit angry, show a bit of emotion. Come on. Come on, we're dying for it.
And not throw... as we, who is it? Dominic Frisby, who did, he's a comedian.
Yeah, he's been on here a few times. Good guy.
He said, we're all far right now. Nigel should not have thrown Tommy Robinson under the bus. He should not have thrown them that they are all right-wing thugs. You cannot have 60%, 70% of the population, i.e. ordinary people, as right-wing thugs. And it was just... the wrong thing to say. And I mean, again, I don't know. Sorry, these are not whether I've. Sorry.
What are you looking for?
I'm looking for the that poll. Here we are. Support for Nigel Farage plummets amid UK riots. He tries to have his cake and eat it too. Now, I don't know what the numbers are on this, but
and also it's coming from Sky News, so
it is coming from Sky News. But let's put it this way: let's go back to let's go back to COVID. Nigel did not stand up in COVID. He did not at all. He led the seeds for this totalitarian government to be put in place. He said nothing to help anybody.
He did bang a pot in solidarity with the NHS, though.
Yes.
So there was that.
Corbyn, Jeff Wyatt, those were two of the... Jeff is now sadly passed, but they were the people who stood up and were arrested. Andrew Bridgen, similarly. Now, the next question is, I don't know whether people know, but Andrew Bridgen asked to go to reform before this election and was rejected.
Yep.
Now, he would have been an almost certain win for reform. He was well known, and they rejected him. Why? That's the question. Why?
Well, I think Farage is just overly cautious, and I think Farage is somebody who gets us to a point but no further.
And that leads us is how you unite these groups that are all over the place, little groups, without this thing becoming a bigger problem. And if everybody is arrested, picked off, then obviously we will eventually go into some underground type of Irish Republican type of thing. And that's very scary. Or we will get continual lawfare and we will get elections cancelled. But it is terrifying in my opinion. I'm very, very scared about what's happening.
I would like to see more from Nigel, a bit of the Thomas More about him, saying, no, this is a line in the sand here. All I ever can own is the ground I stand upon, i.e. the values of freedom of speech. And that's absolute. And okay, send me to Robben Island, so be it. I'll become a true dissident then. He would become more powerful than Starmer could ever imagine if he actually sort of outlawed him. A sitting member of parliament. Yeah. I would. So
the thing that gets me about this whole thing with Nigel is that the country's begging for it. There's an open door, and we were looking at the statistics of the 2015 election versus the 2024 election. We have the implosion of the Conservative Party. I mean, complete implosion. We have the illegal immigration and migration numbers out of all control, the crime out of control in the 9 years between those two elections. And Nigel's vote moved from 3.9 million to 4.2 million.
A little bit less than that. He gained just north of 200,000 votes, which proportionally is probably less than the population growth.
Which is nothing.
Yep.
It's appalling. It was a terrible result. And nobody talks about why was that such a bad result? And I can tell you why that was such a bad result. As I've said to Nigel, you now have more people outside the party looking in who you've chucked out for all sorts of reasons. Myself, you. We are activists. We are people who are prepared to die for our country. Not somebody who's just sort of some 65-year-old overweight guy who you can control with a thumb screw to not say anything, who's sort of a paper candidate. You shouldn't be putting paper candidates up. You've got enough real candidates in this country, real ones.
And when you say that to him, what's his answer?
Tommy Robinson's a thug. Not exactly, but that's the gist of it. It's extremely sad.
I've said it before. I think it does boil down to that, going on Radio 4 or going on Nick Robinson or something, being grilled by Laura Königsberg or something, and he wants to be able to say that he's cleaner than clean. And
the problem is he isn't. And I've got conservative friends. I'm talking about country solicitor type people. They're not particularly wealthy, but they're solid middle class, live in Norfolk, live in Hampshire. And they say to me things like, well, I basically agree with what Nigel says, but can I hold my nose enough to vote for him? Do you know why they say that?
No.
They're moral cowards? I don't know.
No, they say that because he isn't cleaner than clean. There's always been this sort of surrounding himself by people, for example, Posh George, who is a convicted felon.
Don't know who that is.
Posh George is extremely wealthy young guy who went out with, what's her name? Gigolo, this Made in Chelsea set.
Oh, okay.
It's a Made in Chelsea set. It's the sort of Daily Mail gossip column set. But he was convicted of fraud and various other things, I think, in the States. And there's been a sort of surround of one of two of these people. And it's also the way that Nigel just sort of gets somebody on a train, like Henry Bolton, and then the next minute he's off the train and he's got the new guy, the chair, who he met 5 minutes ago. So there's no building. There's no structure of people. You can say, for example, that the Labour have built very well. I mean, Yvette Cooper, who has popped up again, and they're all the same sort of one or two names. But there is a slight amount of that. It can be class snobbishness, but there's something about it that they don't like. And
yes.
And I can't pin my fingers on it, but that was the exact quote of a friend of mine who is incredibly sensible, a sensible sort of ordinary woman.
Yeah, well, my take on this might be a bit pessimistic, but basically, in order for there to be any change, we kind of have to let nature do its course. And for the generation of people who get all of their news from newspapers and the TV to pass on, because there is, and I've tried this, there is nothing you can say to these people. You can get them to a point and they'll agree with you, and then you'll come back the day later and did you see what the Daily Mail said or something like that? You cannot move them from that mindset.
And I wonder if that's really the demographic Nigel should be aiming at, sort of middle class, sort of older solicitor women type. Isn't it the working class men of the North and the Midlands? Isn't that who we should be talking to?
Let's look at what actually happened in that election, in the last election. Okay, Nigel won what I called weird places, peripherals. And the main thing that he won, apart from Anderson, who's different, because obviously he's got form, he stood for the Conservatives and Labour, and he's a sitting MP, so he's got his own base. But Nigel won places which have the people who were pushed out of the East End of London and who retired to Great Yarmouth, Thurrock and Claxton. And there are 60 plus. Yep. And that's his demographic. The Conservatives won the countryside from friends like my people in Hampshire and Norfolk, and Labour won the cities and the north.
Yeah.
And
all of them kind of by default, because turnout was virtually nothing.
And turnout was, and we talked about this a little bit, the turnout was way worse because nobody has looked at the fact that 10 to 15% of the population are not registered to vote.
Yes.
And there's nothing. So if we had a 60% turnout, we actually had a 45 to 50% or 50% turnout. If 15% weren't counted, I calculated on that basis, if we took, using the Electoral Commission's numbers of say an average of 15% weren't registered. Labour won on 15.5% of the population.
Yep.
And the issue for anybody who wants to move on with politics is what is happening to those 50% of the population, and how do you get them? Because they are Middle England, they are northern people who just can't be bothered, don't make the effort, didn't get the paper in. It's just all nothing we do
and they
makes
feel that
any
they've been
difference.
shut out of the process to the point where it doesn't matter what they.
So if we need Nigel to sort of step up and become a true leader, an Oliver Cromwell almost leader, not in the military sense, but speak to the disaffected, do you think he's got it in him to actually do that?
No, because he's not prepared to get dirty. And what I mean by that is to stand with a lot of people who don't talk in a particularly nice way and who are bricklayers and a bit rough, and really move this on and talk to the working class. Because the working class are a large proportion of this population still.
Yeah, well, and they've basically just been criminalised at this point under this government. And if he put himself directly alongside them and said, okay, well, fine, if you want to criminalise these people, put me in jail and just dare them to do it.
I just don't think Trump would have done this. I don't think Trump would have reacted like this. I think Trump would have reacted more like Musk has been reacting. It should have been Nigel saying those things, and it should have been Nigel going to Southport and being the leader of the community that everybody's talking about, these leaders, except we don't have one.
I like how, Musk will drop F-bombs sometimes. There's a bit of emotion there. There's a bit of fire in the belly. Yeah. I'm not getting that from Nigel at the moment. There doesn't seem to be any fire in the belly.
He's also... I'm the same age as Nigel. There's no question you lose energy. Suddenly drops off a cliff at about 60, which is, when you look at retirement ages, I get why they are that. They sort of suddenly collapses. And he's made it to being MP. He did it finally. So is that it? Because he did it. He achieved that. They can't say, you tried 8 times and didn't do it. He did it.
He needs to hand over to somebody else then.
I think so, but he also needs to change the structure of reform.
Getting a structure would be a good thing.
Getting a structure, it needs to stop it being a limited company, and he needs to open it up to leadership contests. And I think he needs to open up, the entire discussion to encompass a broader group of people.
I would like it that he just steps completely outside the Overton window, to the right, obviously. And when he's grilled by someone like Krishnan Guru Murthy about something or other which is outside their paradigm of what's allowed, just go, I did it. Yeah, not apologising. Like Elon, like Trump sometimes does. Go, now we're talking about this. Yeah, I use those words, yeah. Now what? That's what I want to see.
And we need somebody younger. We need somebody who is 35 to 40. We just need another face because, he's been around a long time and everybody knows what Nigel's going to say. It's the same old sort of stuff. It's not very exciting.
No, not me. I don't have the cognitive capacity to lead.
Here we are.
All right, I'll do it.
Go on then, Bo. Sort it out.
No, we do. I know either of you two. There's an image, a face. We've seen it. I mean, even the guy in Argentina, we want somebody who's... What is his name? The guy with the hair.
Millet. Get the chainsaw out.
I hope you appreciated that segment from the podcast of the Lotus Eaters. If you want to see what else we're up to, you can follow Connor's series where he gets lots of important people from the political sphere. Here he has one with Dame Andrea Jenkins. And if you want to see what else we're putting out, we post all our links to everything we're producing on our Twitter. Thank you very much for watching, and goodbye.